Sup everybody, this is Karak with ACG. You may know me from my award-winning self-help books, Clown Shaver, Everyone Starts Somewhere, and 101 Ways to Please Your Mate, a list of 101 escort companies. Today, I'm smashing the hashtag and laughing maniacally as I review Brutal for the PS4. Brutal is basically a permadeath version of Gauntlet with procedural level generation and an ascii graphical filter, answering, I think, the age-old question, can a game do well if it looks like a black felt painting? Brutal comes out August 9th, exclusive to the PS4 and all its slashing, dashing, stabbing, sword dancing, shield throwing, and sorcery-filled goodness. Let's see how it did, shall we? As always, if you liked the video, maybe subscribe. So here's the review for Brutal. Laughing while saying ascii, because I lack maturity. Gauntlet before there were color TVs, and thank God for Double Jump. Graphics are up first. You know, I think, as we all know, color scheme is actually vital for an isometric game in particular. It's why game developers can spend months just figuring out the overall palettes of color to use to make sure that the characters look organically connected to the backgrounds, but also discernible from it. These guys just threw their hands up and said, screw it, let's just make everything out of ASCII symbols. And you know what? It actually worked. It not only works well in many places, but the attention to detail, like collecting letters and symbols that, when constructed into items, make up the etches on a sword or the cams on a bow, is really fantastic art design and a layer of detail that I wasn't expecting. You know, as you follow game design, you sort of pick up on these things, and this could have been one of those easy-go filters where the graphical style is only a thin veneer over the same old. But Brutal makes sure that the ASCII design philosophy is actually noticed everywhere, from the overland map being a perfect rendition of roguelike ASCII titles to the enemies bursting into broken symbols all around you. It's a fantastic element in the swathes of occasional color, from explosions, burning swords, frozen enemies, and a spell slip sliding their way to your fireball catcher's mitt of a face, all do an excellent job of holding up the action. Now, as you play, you can upgrade, enchant, and create items, and who would have thought a couple lines could actually alter a character's head from a leather cup-style helmet to a War Master's horned head protector, but it actually does, and it's easy to notice those differences. Now, sadly, not everything's perfect. Whether in single or couch co-op, the frame rate never holds up, stuttering and spiking at random times, even with no enemies. While the game appears minimalistic and does a really good job at that, it can artificially, I think, raise hopes that it will run perfect, which it doesn't. Actually, those aren't really hopes, those are expectations, and sadly the game fails those expectations. While it sometimes does it in heavy combat, it's actually most noticeable in sweeping runs from left to right across rooms, and sadly, depending on the locations, this can happen fairly often. It's really a bit disappointing. Additionally, one place where the color scheme doesn't pay off is during momentary platforming. Just imagine white and black lined characters jump into white and black platforms across a black background. Luckily, for the most part, jumping is a nightmare mostly avoided due to a handy double button jump that sees you circus flipping your way over openings and enemies with a politician's dexterity. But there are the occasional times where something isn't timed right and you fall to your death, but due to the lack of a color gradient, you really can't tell where you even fell from. Lastly, some enemies are very small, and since they're only white and black lines and you are white and black lines, and they have a habit of jumping on you and driving you around like a skin car while trying to kill you, it can be really infuriating to try to figure out why you're getting hurt. Luckily, most vibrate the PS4 pad when they are on you, but a number of instances occurred where this did not happen. And though they do very little damage, you will find out later why very little damage actually matters. Those couple issues aside, I have to say I love the overall look of the game, and hats off to these guys for taking what might have actually appeared to be a graphically lean presentation and actually making it not only sort of enjoyable in minor detail, but also visually interesting, whether you're dying on the 5th floor or later the 25th floor. Sound, music, and voice. And of course, sound is up first. When you think about it, sound's really that third eye that alerts a gamer to action and reaction via excellent sound samples, or it sits blinded by a bunch of crappy and cramped effects and noise that overlaps and does little to inform the gamer of what's going on. Luckily, the sound in Brutal is very good, and when two folks are trading please die messages to each other and a new group of monsters appear to say hi, You know what? It's easy enough to tell where they're coming from, and later exactly which monster it is due to some excellent sound work on the monster's part. That's one aspect I really liked in this game. Each creature has its own sound or effect that they make, and in some of the busier locations or locations where they were off screen, being able to think to myself, oh shit, it's an arachnid versus a legion of the smaller spiders, helped me actually prepare for them. Of course, preparing being screaming like a girl and running off, but in the end, it really didn't matter. It's good sound design. Music. I can't lie, it's hero horns and victory violins the entire game. For the most part, it's filled with them from top to bottom, and while there are moments when cooler heads prevail, this is usually channeling the hero in all of us riding our black and white horse over hills of black felt into enemies that all look like you put your fingers on the wrong keys on the keyboard late at night. Which actually works pretty well, because for the most part, Brutal considers downtime to be the 2 milliseconds it takes you to move your finger from the triangle to the circle button. You guys know me, I'm usually more about the subtlety of a soundtrack, but frankly, it's a game called Brutal, and it's based in a black and white color scheme, so subtlety isn't really a required aspect here. And the fact that the tracks are uniformly excellent also helps, especially when you notice each one perhaps adhering to the violins sound creepy, so let's play them creepily, school of thought. But honestly, I liked it. Voice. None, so let's move on. Gameplay. So you start out the game picking a ranger, Amazon warrior, or wizard, each with their own slight differences in skills and in starting damage and health. It's not a huge difference for many, but take the wizard through after, say, the Amazon, and you're suddenly going to feel like every single box was replaced by Wolverine's square-ass head. But that's good, because a game like this, really with procedurally generated randomized seeds for levels, it needs some good overall variation, and this certainly has it. So you pick a character, and you can also do single player or couch co-op. We'll talk about single player first. Once you've chosen what you're doing, you jump into a level, and it starts with you warping in and ends with you leaping down a trapdoor to the next dungeon. Almost instantly you're set upon by bad guys, growing nastier and nastier as you descend into the black on black bowels of the deeper levels. But so too do the rewards, and really the rewards matter here. First, there's money, which is good for things like giving to the gods to see if they want to bless you, and I have to say that these gods seem to answer about as often as the sun. Actually, I could pray to the fucking Loch Ness Monster and have better luck. The number of times I threw my McDuggets onto the altar, hit the prayer button to God, only to see them fucking obliterate the prayer desk, the altar, and the entire area near it was countless. In fact, I began to wonder if maybe these gods thought trying to kill you was the blessing. I'm not sure. But in my entire time playing, I got 2 blessings. That's right. 2. It was good. It was another life, both times, but damn, I could have built a black on white fortress for all the cash that I had used on that. But other rewards are letters. Now, different color on the letters corresponds to either enhancing or crafting. If it's crafting, a letter is just white. If it's enchanting, it glows in the color of the enchantment, like orange for fire, green for poison, that sort of thing. And get used to color categories, because enemies also have it. If you end up fighting a purple skeleton, he's usually armed with an arcane weapon and so forth. I thought it worked really well, but it worked even better in multiplayer. It really helps if you want to make sure you're putting your foot where the enemy's ass is for the most bang for the buck, so you can switch out your freezing goblin spear for your friend's fire wand whenever it's needed. It works well in both modes. And yeah, honestly, couch co-op is going to be awesome, because nothing is more fun than dying and watching your friend try to fight off the same horde. But you know what? The entire time you're secretly hoping he doesn't kill him, because then he would look slightly better than you. Now, if he does end up killing him and resurrects you, you both lose health, or he can drag your feeble remains to a trapdoor of the level and throw you in with him, resurrecting you later versus on the spot has its own positives and negatives. I thought that was cool as well. Now, there are some issues though. For example, it's just a little bit difficult to get into the separate embedded menus, especially when you're under attack. Hitting the touchpad brings up the map, which could have easily also had the different menus on it, but instead you see an ASCII map, which is about as endearing as looking at someone's damn colonoscopy result, and just as useful when you're trying to enchant your hammer of smashing the unexpected enemy +6. Now, going into the inventory allows you to move from there to skills and to enchant and forge menus, but it always felt cumbersome, like there was always one too many steps at any one time. Now, speaking of skills, while everyone starts out with a slightly different skill set, once you start the game and level up, you can easily start grabbing everyone else's skills, which is vital and very useful for things like getting extra inventory space or using bows and arrows. Now, I can't really say that bows and arrows are vital, but the ability to have one more weapon type in your arsenal is, as some doors require particular weapon attacks to open them, so the more types of weapons with enchants you can have, the better. Now, control is excellent. While sometimes it's a bit hard to discern where the white line of an enemy's reaching appendage is and your face begins, overall I'd say it's pretty doable, and I knew where I was at any one time. Like any game like this though, things can get messy when 6 passionate about everyone else dying types of characters all smashed together for a life-ending meet and greet. I never really had a problem knowing where I was at any one time, unless it was jumping. Now, as I discussed earlier, this is basically one life to live. It's the proverbial lucky cat that you're sailing on here. It's all 8 other lives have been spent and you've got just this one. Now, there are occasional items you can get that'll give you an extra resurrection, but if you're by yourself, it is really vital you keep an eye on that. The bread and butter for me, though, in all honesty, is the Mapmaker. This thing is a full-featured awesome machine with the ability to not only start fresh or have it randomize an empty floor plan for you that you can just fill with stuff. And I easily am going to spend hours in this. The only issue, funny enough, is the color palette. It really makes it a head scratcher at times to figure out where you're placing something, and I wish there had been some kind of workaround, but ultimately there is more than enough there to keep people busy for a long time. Fun factor. Yeah, it's a blast. Brutal is what it calls itself, though. It is brutal, but laughably enough, it's not until, say, 8 or 10 levels in. So before that, I was skipping through levels, learning the game, gouging enemies' percentage signs off their body, and basically acting like a cannibal on holiday, just collecting questionable meat for later use. The problem is that at some point I realized I don't have enough questionable meat. Because really those first levels they're primers and locations to teach intelligent use of like the co-op and single player tactics. It's the later ones that sneak up and crunch the shit out of you with just a couple mistakes. You're going to find yourself dying really, really easily. And I'm going to tell you right now, a stupid death is painful in this game. Now, regardless of that, it is still very fun, whether it was the first or the 40th time through the first layers of the dungeons. Due to the variability of the setup and procedural generation, I really can see this game lasting a long time for me. So as you guys know, I rate games on a buy, wait for sale, rent, or never touch again rating scale. This is a buy. It is an excellent game, great co-op, really fun single player, amazing map maker. I'm going to have a blast with this. So as always, if you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. Check out the Patreon, the Twitter, Reddit, whatever. If you disliked it, give it a thumbs down, and peace out.